Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am your wonderful host, Phantom, and welcome back to World of Warplanes. Now, I've been sitting back and trying to figure out exactly how to play this game, well, better, for the last couple of days, and I've been looking around and experimenting myself, and I've also picked up a new plane. This is the XP-75 Eagle. What does it do? Well, it goes up. It goes up really well. I decided, since I wanted to understand, or better understand, the roles that each aircraft classes play, and generally, not just their generalized stereotypical roles, but how they actually function in-game. For example, whether or not things that the developers say the planes are good at are actually working as intended in the current state, I decided to take an extreme. And, well, this aircraft is very extreme. This is probably one of the most powerful in terms of horsepower aircraft in the entire game. It has, if I can bring up all of this stuff, though most of it is useless, one of the things that I've actually really seen, because, well, we open survivability, and it doesn't even show the hit points. The UI needs an overhaul, as is most of the game, but like I've been saying before, the base gameplay is actually fun now. They just need to actually get an entire team in here to really just spruce the entire interface up, and a lot of the balance. But, as I was saying, well, if we take the bombs off, which, honestly, it does come with 500-pound bombs, but, you know, most of the time, I don't find myself in a situation where I'm actually using them. They're good for a liability, just in case you need to blow up a building, but in most circumstances, this thing should be concentrated on air-to-air combat at all times. But, well, actually I have to hit mount, sorry. Now, as you can see here, this plane has a rate of climb of 87 meters a second. That is pretty much one of the highest in the entire game. This thing outclimbs some, or rather most, jets. There are tier 10s that don't have climb rates that good. As you can probably imagine, that's not like the chiefly important thing in the game. There's a lot of other factors that go into air-to-air combat that, you know, decide who's going to win a fight. And this is what I've been trying. But this aircraft, well, it's probably one of the best at just commanding altitude and dictating whether or not an engagement happens or not. And I've been experimenting exactly how powerful that single quality is. How powerful is it that you can pretty much decide when and where an engagement happens? Or rather, have a very, very, very loaded deck when that situation comes to pass. And from what I've seen, it's not the most amazing thing in the world. But I'll stop yakking and we'll get into the game really quick here so I can show you. And then I'll come back and explain more of the statistics here. Because a lot of them are kind of inconclusive, and they need a little bit more time to explain, and it's probably better if I just show you first. But this is a tier 7 heavy fighter. Now, one thing you're going to see once we get into a game here is that I'd probably say about 75% of the people playing currently that you're going to get a game in a plane at this rank or higher are bots, which is why the queue time is going to take so long. But suffice to say, don't get overeager and rush up to these tiers. There's nobody playing. Remember, the game's been dead for 5 years. Okay, so now we have our game. So, as we see over here in the corner, the roles of a heavy fighter are to attack enemy sectors by destroying aerial and ground targets, to destroy enemy bombers, use your speed and weapon advantage in high-altitude combat. Now, that's kind of correct, but with the XP-75 being a very particular machine, you see that it has very obvious strengths in some of those, and very obvious weaknesses in a lot of the other things. But let us admire our massive plane, which is probably about 70% engine and piping for said engine. This thing is, well, a 3,000 horsepower engine and a saddle. But, so, let's see what we're going up against here. We have some players, but as you can see by the very
Show me what you can do,
sort of,
pilots. Let's roll.
you know, kind of basic names we have in here, you'll see there are a lot of bots. But you can kind of pick the players out. For example, you can see me and anyone with numbers in their game. I'm pretty sure Benny here might be a player as well. But let me just demonstrate what this plane is good at as I put myself on a line for something. So just point the plane up and then hold down W. Yeah, I'm basically helicoptering. And that's the boost. However, there's also a consumable that you can take that increases the boost even more, just kind of a pinch. What I've started to see is that with each aircraft class, they have a consumable that basically is bullshit. Heavy fighters have an engine cooldown boost, which is what I have mounted to 1 right now. Normal fighters have reinforced control surfaces, which basically means I win this fight, because the laws of physics stop applying to them, essentially. Which is kind of bullshit, but it emphasizes in the arcade game aspect what these classes are supposed to be good at. Now, if you'll excuse me, you're seeing a problem here. Now, as you could have imagined, had that been a player, I probably would have put that guy in a very bad spot, or he's still in a very bad spot. However, the situation is that the major problem with the XP75, and also one that highlights a sort of prevalent sort of note in the metagame currently, if you could even call it that, but the way that the game is designed that favors certain types of tactics, or certain types of planes and equipment, is that it only has M2 Browning 50 cals. And in-game, those have a very, very short engagement range. We're talking about 500 meters at best. I managed to totally snipe that kill from those 2 bots, but the problem with the 50 cals is the engagement range is so small, and their damage per shot is also incredibly small. So this makes chewing through enemy planes a bit of a pain in the ass. As you can see, you can probably tell by the way I'm using this plane, if you have any general experience with planes and how they fight in warfare, you can tell that I'm energy fighting, which is climbing up to a very high altitude, diving down on my opponent, basically just filling him full of lead, and then before he has a chance to respawn, just point the nose of the plane back up, use all of that energy that I gained in the dive to gain back up to altitude faster than he can actually react. This is what I think heavy fighters are supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be energy fighting, whereas normal fighters, they're mostly all turn fighters. Whether or not it's historically accurate for each individual fighter to be a turn fighter, like there are some fighters like the 109 that is historically an energy fighter, but they all seem to be classed as turn fighters. I think there's probably still room for you to actually use energy fighting tactics as a fighter. However, with reinforced control surfaces, like I said, basically giving you obnoxious maneuverability at the push of a button, basically what you're supposed to be doing in them is just flying around and turn fighting. This is another bot, but as you can see, I'm using the strengths of this aircraft in its obnoxious engine to basically ruin that bot's day and, well, put him in a very bad spot for my teammates to pick him up. That's also another issue with the XP75. It's kind of hard for you to actually get the kills unless you, like, roll in and steal them. Mainly because, again, the weapon damage is so low and it takes so long for you to actually kill someone. A major problem I've had with this plane is the fact that I'll sometimes really want that damn kill, and I'll put myself in a really bad situation that I can't escape from, and I'll just get eaten by fighters because I can't escape them, because I'm bleeding all my energy trying to get a kill. This is kind of the issue with this, and I think it's probably, it mainly down to the fact that it's probably, it's significant to the XP-75, but not necessarily all other heavy fighters, because heavy fighters typically have large amounts of cannons. So, usually this isn't very much of a problem. But the XP-75 gets obnoxious climb rate, but it has to kind of put itself in an awkward spot in order to kill people with it. So this to me says cannons are meta. If something has cannons and a long engagement range because it's a higher caliber weapon, which I'll show you after this game, it's going to be good. So that means that things that have primarily machine gun armaments, which I'm looking sideways at the F-86 Sabre at tier 10 and thinking, that only has M3 Browning machine guns, which do fire faster than M2s, but they're still only 50 cals. So, I'm sitting here thinking, that's probably not meta. So that's what I've kind of been trying to figure out exactly, you know, over the course of the last couple of days. How to play the game better, and also, where I'm gonna go with it. And I think I've almost made my decision, but if you'll excuse me, I have to get rid of a couple of planes here. There's one. Now, we have another plane behind us, but I'm going to use the boost now to give myself an extra 8 seconds of boost out of fucking nowhere and escape that other P-51. It's a bot, but you know, this can be replicated with people. However, it's not always reliable to do that because, well, if fighters are really determined, they can chase you, and if they have cannons and have a long engagement range, it's going to be kind of hard to get away from them without them killing you. You're going to be flying in a straight line trying to do this after all. So, this plane is entertaining and fun. However, it has very, very big obvious weak points and drawbacks, which is usually what you expect out of a premium vehicle and why I like playing these types of things so often. They cost lots of money, but, you know, they're entertaining because they have very, very different play styles. It's something that you don't necessarily get out of tree vehicles most of the time, because they all have a tendency to be stepping stones, as I see them. They're all kind of very minor in terms of what their strengths are and the differences between each other. Whereas premium vehicles have a tendency to be visually interesting because the designs don't necessarily fit anywhere else, and also kind of cartoonish in the way that they're balanced. It makes them more interesting to play and more endearing to me. Fucking goddamn it. And also, I have been looking very hard at the way the game actually acts when you're shooting it. Well, when you're shooting at things. As you can see, I'm being chased by that guy now, who then got popped by AA. But there's obviously some things going on with the actual firing mechanics that do also emphasize specific styles of play, or rather specific skills for pilots, which I have been testing, but we'll get to that after we're finished here. And also, one of the other things that I'm learning is that if there are no teammates at a base and it is full of enemies, don't go into it. Even if you have an altitude advantage, just fly the fuck away. Taking a base is a team effort, and if there are no team members there to assist you, it's not going to work. Which is kind of a bit of a pain in the ass in a lot of situations, because it means that you are shackled to your team in a lot of cases. But as you can see, that big cloud of enemies trying to welcome me to Morrowind back there, yeah, we're not going back there. Even if we can get an altitude advantage and get a drop on any of those guys there, we're just not gonna go there. As you can see here, the weaknesses of the XP-75 really come into play when you start to attack very durable targets. Like it says in the loading screen, you should be attacking bombers and ground attack aircraft. These are some of the hardest targets for the XP-75 to actually engage because they're so durable and you do so little damage. So you kind of have to slam on the brakes in order to get enough time to actually do the damage to kill them, which robs you of your energy advantage and makes it very difficult to actually respond to new threats after you've engaged these kinds of targets. So, as you can see, the issues are piling up, and, well, fortunately the game is becoming more understandable now that I've taken this extreme route here and judged one thing, or one facet of air combat on its merits in the game. And it looks like that we've won.
Victory is ours!
We didn't do very much, but, well, it's mostly bots anyway, so it's not like we had very many things to, like, very pressing matters to defend our honor with. Even though that P-51A totally did outscore us. I was flying around talking most of the time. My bad. And also, this ME-410, yeah, he's probably feeling pretty bad right now. But anyway, back to the hangar. So yes, by taking this extreme and trying to learn from what this extreme gives me in terms of strengths and weaknesses, I now understand the game a whole lot better. And what this says to me is that always go for cannons. Engagement range of weapons is actually extraordinarily vital. And maneuverability in combat kind of supersedes, in some cases, actual, like, climbing ability. There's a weird balance of things here, but climbing is important because you can set up an engagement. However, as I just demonstrated with the XP-75, you set up that engagement and you really need to actually hit everything right in that engagement in order to kill someone because you have these piddly little machine guns that take so long to kill all of your opponents. Whereas, if you take too long, a fighter's gonna hop on your ass, and you're probably gonna go down in a flaming wreck. But, one of the other things that I've been looking at, if we go back to the overview, is some of the pilot skills and trying them out, more or less. I've been kind of bouncing around trying to figure out which is more effective, and I haven't been able to nail down very many specifics here because I don't have statistical information in front of me. I highly doubt that anyone knows truly how effective all of these are in terms of combat, or like terms of like metagame specifics, because there's been no one playing the game for 5 years, so obviously nobody knows, and also the game has changed rather abruptly. So probably only the developers really know how effective these are. However, one thing I have noticed is that, well, accuracy, as in pilot accuracy, like the both marksman skills, seems like it's a very important thing that you're going to need. And it seems like engine power, the small engine power increases that you can get under most circumstances, kind of seem like placebo. They're only really going to be effective, I think, if you can get literally all of them for a plane, which is going to take quite a while because these pilot skills are very expensive. But as you might be able to see in the videos that I posted, and this one, and just by playing on your own, very obviously, this is not a game with, like, actual simulated ballistics. What you're firing is a giant laser beam at the enemy that is basically numbers. And when they hit a plane, they do a dice roll to whether or not you hit and how much damage they do. The marksman skills probably reduce the actual effects of those dice rolls. They remove RNG from the system, as far as I can tell. And also, Marksman 2 is actually a little bit more significant, because in addition to reducing dispersion, which I'm assuming is accuracy and means that your shots are going to hit more and actually potentially cause damage, it also increases the accuracy of firing at actively maneuvering targets by 10%. What do they mean by actively maneuvering? Well, from what I've been able to gather, active maneuvering means turning as hard as you can in any axis, and rolling. You will take less damage if you are doing any of these sorts of maneuvers, unlike, say, War Thunder, where it's only minorly effective and mouse aim pretty much removes all defensive maneuvering abilities from play. This game, you will take less hit point damage from incoming damage to your plane if you fly like a crazy person. So, that's another thing to get used to in this game, as well as with the XP-75's ridiculous climb rate. Before, when I started playing the game, I was playing it mostly like War Thunder. I was taking very, very, very measured maneuvers, trying to maintain my airspeed, because I didn't know exactly how loose the game is. The game's very loose. It requires a bit of an adjustment. But, with this all said, there are a lot of skills in here that are useful, and a lot of skills that really aren't useful. So I'm still trying to fill them out for myself, and as we go along in our adventures in this game, I'm going to be playing it much more in the future. We'll slowly figure out exactly what's meta-compliant here and what isn't. But, additionally as well, with accuracy, if we go to the upgrades, We also have the gun sight upgrades, which is the gyroscopic gun sight for the Tier 7 vehicles, like Tier 7 to 8 vehicles, as well as the general gun sight for all of the other planes, at previous ranks. Now, this is significant because, again, it increases accuracy, and accuracy is much more than actually hitting the target. It's affecting the dice rolls in some capacity. This much I am certain of. And it's also judged as very important by the developers. As you can see, it's the single most expensive upgrade that you can buy. So obviously, there's a reason for that. So even if I don't have all the statistic information in front of me, you can clearly see that there's something going on under the surface here, and this begs analyzation. It's probably going to get more analyzation by more skilled people than I, as the game now hopefully grows and gets better, because, well, more people coming into the game and wanting to be competitive at it means that more people are going to tear the game apart and try and understand it so they can win at it better. This may lead to some bad things down the road, but hopefully the game developers are going to be on top of this. World of Warplanes has basically been dead and on no one's minds for 5 years. So if Update 2.0 really does bring the game back to life, which it does seem like it is, because honestly, I enjoy playing this. Hopefully, this won't get stuck in the bureaucratic red tape that World of Tanks has, because it's just been sitting there kind of in life support mode for the company for 5 years. And hopefully we'll be, on par with World of Warships in terms of the amount of freedom the dev team gets, because, well, look at what they just did. I'm not exactly sure whose idea it was on the dev team to fix the game in this fashion, but I know damn certain that nobody from the Minsk office actually ordered this. They basically probably got a free hand to do whatever the hell they want, and the result is what we're playing right now, which is, in-core gameplay, extremely fun. It's just that the rest of the game is years behind the other two games in the trio. Another thing to show you an example of just how far behind this game is the premium ammunition. I don't like this on principle. However, the issue here is that World of Tanks and World of Warships have premium consumables for credits. They're very expensive, and then you can negative your wallet, and that's kind of the balancing factor with it. And sometimes it doesn't work properly in that regard, since a lot of times you can just run the premium stuff and still make money if you're doing well enough. But as you can see here, there's no option to do that in World of Warplanes. This is, in terms of the way the other two games were designed and how they've come along, this is ancient. So this has got to get changed because no one's going to use this stuff. And it's potentially broken, and this is honest to God pay to win, because you can only buy it for real money, and it makes the plane better at things. So this is A, ancient in terms of game balance for the other games in the series, and 2, outright game breaking and looks very bad for the game itself. So I think in the future you're probably going to see an update where they probably come in and they fix premium consumables at least, as well as clean up the UI and make half of the shit work. As you might have noticed at the bottom of the screen while I was playing, the UI has a tendency to get kind of stuck and not really do anything. It kind of has a tendency to break. A lot of the icons don't necessarily work. The game is really rough around the edges. The only thing that saves it right now is the fact that the core gameplay, as I've said, is fun, and that's a good place to start. But another thing I wanted to go over was the engagement range, since this is probably the most important thing to consider when you're actually going to go up a tree and, actually spec into something if you want to have something effective, like in an energy fighter, for example, like the XP-75, which is still a very fun plane, but, like I said, a lot of problems. But, so, over here, we have the maximum DPS and the optimal distance. The shells kind of carry over a little bit farther, but they're not really going to do any damage at like 600 meters. You have to get within 600 meters to actually get something, and they're only probably going to start doing actual damage at around the maximum distance here, which is about 500 meters. And we do this much damage at this much range. This actually seems fairly high, but as you saw demonstrated, it's a DPS focused thing, which means a lot of little hits very often. So The problem is that has no shock. You can't really zap someone out of the air like that. You have to sit behind them and let the damage roll out in order to kill them. Which is a problem considering that the engagement range is so short and this plane is specifically suited to energy fighting, which means that the engagement time, your window for engagement, is going to be even shorter because you're moving so fast and you're not going to want to stick around. And while you could say, oh, well, it just comes around for another pass, it finishes the enemy off. Optimally, you want one pass, and there are a lot of aircraft in this game that can do the same thing in one pass. Now, on the other extreme end of the spectrum here, if I can pull up an example of what engagement range looks like at obnoxious levels, let's go look at the I-215, the multi-role fighter for the Russian tree, which is something I'm considering actually getting. Now, this has two 57mm cannons, which is absolutely massive. The thing to note here is that the engagement range is also suitably massive. It has over double the engagement range over just normal 50 cals, meaning that this thing doesn't really have to actually get close to anything in order to actually start hitting it. You just have to actually thwart the dice rolling system and hit the target. Which, honestly, as I'm seeing, not that terribly hard. So, I may spec into this kind of thing, and also, heavy cannon gameplay may actually be probably the preferable meta over machine guns. But we shall see about that. We'll bid our communist meteor goodbye for the moment, but I have a feeling we'll see him in the future. But, so, I want to play one more game before I call this a day. So let's see if we can get something a little bit more energetic than when we had the first time. As you can see, I'm learning the game here, and, well, I'd like to think I'll be someone to look to for this game. I mean, there aren't very many people actually playing the game right now, so if I can be a voice in the room for, you know, World of Warplanes, as funny as that fucking sounds to me, if you told me this even a couple of years ago, that I could potentially, you know, be someone of note in the World of Warplanes community, I laughed in your face. This game was not only terrible and just unsatisfying to play, there's also a very, you know, kind of a very uncomfortable story behind it during the alpha test, which I'm not going to get into, but there were some problems with certain people and certain accounts that were banned for certain actions that didn't seem all that, you know, amazing or infringing upon anyone's sensibilities. I'll be light about that, but moving on. Okay, we've got our next game. Now, as I said, that took about 2 minutes for me to get that game.
Cover your allies. Hit the
Don't
enemy,
rush up the
and we
trees.
shall win.
Enjoy the grind down there. Or rather, that seems fun to say about enjoying grinds, but take your time, don't put money in the game to get all the way up here. There really isn't much to see at the moment. I will be probably shooting for tier 10, but I'm gonna go play the game and not throw money into the machine to get up there immediately. If you can take anything from my experiences with buying the XP75, take that. You probably shouldn't throw money or an obnoxious amount of money into the game right at this moment. So I hope that saves some people some time, some headaches, and some money. But, so, what do we have here? Well, that's kind of annoying.
Get ready for action. Let's go.
So we probably have, as I'm seeing here, one other teammate. Just one, and everybody else is a bot. And then 2 enemies to fight here. So, yeah, this is what we're working with. Now, let's see here. As we kind of moseyed our way over to the command center, we're going to clear this place out. Although, that is a lot of enemies, so we're going to get an altitude advantage over them, and then just kind of observe the situation. Honestly, with all those enemies, I'm just kind of primed to say fuck it, and just go over here. Since, well, it does seem like the AI is being kind of indecisive down there, but yeah, this looks like a lost cause. I could probably pick off some of them, and there's a meteor down there. Haha, big shit, I outclimb him. But unfortunately, I can't fucking... There he is. But let's see here. Where's the... This guy's closer. I think. No, the Hornet's closer. But whatever, they're on the fringe here. And the Hornet is now shooting at me. And my pilot is now injured. Oh, no! Also, if you notice, my reticle just got bigger. That's kind of a problem. Well, this looks bad. It's being a little indecisive there, but, yeah. Yeah, you see, the pilot getting injured also decreases your accuracy artificially as well. Something to note. I don't particularly take med kits because that's actually kind of rare. I'm getting my ass shot up here. I'm playing like an idiot. But I got pulled off that entire situation over there, since that is a lot of dudes. And since my plane is in such a shit condition now with the pilot being wounded, it's probably a little better now that he's healed up, but yeah, you can see how this can become a problem. Okay. Another thing to note, do not head on heavy fighters, you won't win. This isn't War Thunder where you can get a lucky pilot snipe. It's a hit point war, and he has cannons, so he's gonna hit you, and it's gonna hurt. But there's our friend the Meteor. Hey, get the fuck out of here. Well, we can keep on the Meteor's tail, but there's a lot of shit behind us that we have to worry about. Get the fuck back here. There we go. Sorry, Meteor. You really do need more screen time. I like it better than the 262. Fucking everybody goes for the 262. But, well, now, unfortunately, I died. But oh well, the game has respawning, so that's less damaging. So let's see if we can actually get into this game, because it does seem like we're losing pretty heavily here, because, well, our teammates are bots, and they're kind of, well, stupid. That's kind of one of the major annoying things, honestly, at this tier when you're playing with mostly bots. Yeah, they're proficient at basic level stuff. The only problem is they have... well, they have a tendency to be very, very one-track minded. And this can mean if you don't win an immediate advantage over the enemy, it can mean that it's entirely impossible to break out because the bots aren't smart enough to abuse the situation. So, once again, another reason not to rush up to high tiers all that quickly. I mean, if you're super pro at the game, you could probably get away with shit, but, well, fair warning. Your teammates are probably even more incompetent than usual, but at least they stay together, as you can see here. It's a big ball of auto-targeting bots. Yeah, as you can see, not good at that kind of engagement, even though they're zeros. Whoa. Excuse me, coming through. And this zone is locked, but hell, we have so many fucking people here, it doesn't matter. We'll probably be able to take it anyway. That guy's dead. Yeah, good. That's the control point captured for us, but we can't stop here. If we're gonna actually win, we're gonna need to actually take the majority and probably get supremacy as well, if we can. There are enemy bombers coming in over our base, but however, yeah, you know, this thing really isn't good at engaging shit like that without throwing all of its hit points out the window. So we're gonna leave those alone. We've at least taken the command center, so they're gonna stop coming after this wave. And as you can see, there is a good 1 second solid burst that hit that zero that didn't do any damage at all.
The enemy has gathered forces
dice rolls!
to the command center. Be cautious.
Wargaming products.
All positions are captured by the enemy.
And then we suddenly lost literally every position. This is a little harder to manage than, you know, playing the rocket I-15. So, is the game still fun up at this tier? Yeah, it would just be better if we had actual people here instead of stupid bots. And if I had a plane that could carry harder. I don't think this plane can carry very hard. And as you can see here, I've abandoned energy fighting altogether to just kind of swerve around and try to kill all of these, you know, all of these air defense fighters. The only problem is we've already lost, basically, and I'm dead. So, not exactly the most amazing showcase of my skill in this vehicle that I'd like to show. I have been playing very hard.
The enemy force is too strong.
But, yeah, you kind of get what you get here. And, well, that's about it for us today. So, we'll roll back to the hangar. And, well, see if there's anything else I need to talk about. I don't think so. I think I covered basically everything. Just being able to dictate the altitude an engagement takes place at is strong, however, not obnoxiously so. You need other qualities in an aircraft in order for it to be truly good. Alpha damage, which mainly comes from the size of the cannons that you are firing, is probably more important than DPM, and also engagement range is also vitally important, almost as important, at least equally as important as being able to get into a firing position to begin with. So, everybody who likes playing very high caliber fighters, well, you're probably gonna have fun in this game, since at the current moment, you're probably the most effective things in the game. Everyone else, we're probably gonna have to look around a little bit to try and figure out exactly what can be done here, or try and warp the statistics in the background. But, with that all said, I hope we're all starting to understand this weird, new, strange beast that is World of Warplanes 2.0. And I hope that you'll follow me along on my adventures in continuing to learn the game and experiencing these very strange new lands. So, I have been your wonderful host, Fontaman, and I'll see you next time.